Hello, beloveds. This is Shakti speaking to you all. Just an invitation to everybody who is on the call to have your audio muted as well as your video. For the part of the call where I'm going to be speaking to you, it really makes things easier if it's only me that you're seeing on your screen and also me hearing. And then at some point during the call, I am going to be inviting you to ask your questions. And the way that you can do that, if you have a look on your screen at the bottom, you'll see if you take your scroller over the bottom of your page, you'll see that there is a chat box in which you can type your questions, and you can also indicate if you want to share there. But for now, I would like to welcome you very warmly to this call. It's absolutely my delight to be introducing to you today my totality therapy training, and I hope that the content of this call will be very informative and inspiring for all of you. I certainly do feel the presence of enormous support for the work and also for this call from the invisible realms. And so I thought the way that I'd like to present this video to you, this webinar, is to begin with an introduction as to how it came that I developed this particular program, which will also be introducing you to the program. And then at some point, I'm going to invite you to go and have a look at the course itself, at the training program on the beautiful website we've created for it. And then I'm going to invite some of the previous participants in this course to share a bit about their process and their learning from that 21-month process that they went through. And then for the last half an hour or so, my intention is that we'll have an opportunity to have questions and possibly also some live responses. If you have any technical problem, shaktiman@gmail.com. You can also send her a private message in the chat box. So if you fiddle around there, then you'll see how that works. So again, everybody, a very warm welcome from me, Shakti, your presenter for this introduction to the Totality Therapy program. It's been very heartening for me to see such a big response and so much interest in the topic of this webinar, and also by virtue of that in this training. So to introduce how this program developed, I want to say a little bit about myself. I have grown up, as most of you may know, in South Africa during apartheid, and that experience brought into my awareness a deep, deep care for people and for the difficulties that people are experiencing in their lives, and growing up in a country where more than half the population is living underneath the breadline, and much of that was hidden from the public, from public knowledge. So just to continue to a message saying, please can you rather send a message to her than send her an email, because that way it's easy for her to handle any technical problems. Great. Awesome. And so what I'd like to do now is just to continue with my explanation here about how the Totality Therapy program came to be. So this love for people, for humanity, which I'm sure many of you can relate to and maybe felt in your childhood, became in my adulthood, in my 20s, a very big search for a way to make a difference and a contribution towards creating a society in which people could relate to each other with more care. And it took me through various fields. I worked in the development field, I worked in the policy field, I related to government, and I worked with big business. And still I was finding myself feeling dissatisfied and not able to really find that connection to what was going to make a difference to a world that clearly was in crisis. Then in my late 20s, something happened that I can only describe as being a crack that happened in the Matrix. So those of you who've seen the movie The Matrix know that there is this time that can come in our lives where we suddenly realize that life isn't about what we thought it was about. It's not about climbing the social ladder. It's not about the next big car I can get. It's not about getting my ideal picture-perfect family, but that actually there is a me that exists beyond what the market economy has created as being the definitive possibility of being a human being. There is a me that will exist even when this body ceases to exist. And there is a me that has the possibility of actually beginning to embody her divine essence. And that became a very big inquiry that directed the course of my life for, I would say, at least the next decade or two. And then came another interesting element, which was unexpected. I went to go and swim with the dolphins, and through that experience, my world got massively shaken up, and I went into the wilderness and spent some time fasting and praying and asking for guidance as to what the purpose and the direction of my life was. And in that time, I got told that my work was to work with the deep embodiment of energy, of which at that point I didn't know anything. But because that was life's intention for me, I quickly got led to the right teachers, the right support, the right context to get deeply immersed in a deeper understanding of sexual energy and how that works. And pretty soon I found myself doing sessions with people. And not only did I do sessions, I did a lot of sessions, and I also did a lot of group work. Really at some point became too much for me. I couldn't meet the demand. I was traveling internationally, and even however thin I stretched myself, it just wasn't working. I also found myself dissatisfied with what was available in the world in terms of working with sexuality. On the one hand, there was sexology that felt to me like it was too clinical in its understanding and approach to sexuality. And on the other side, there was the Western tantric work, which seemed to me oftentimes to be too focused on some kind of sexual technique. And what my experience was that the people who were coming to me actually were coming with a very deep inquiry. They were desperate to not only change the relationship to their own sexuality, but to their lives. They were coming to me because they couldn't bear anymore the shame and the guilt and the embarrassment that was there for them in simply just being a sexual being. They were sitting with secrets in their lives that they didn't know who to speak to. They were in marriages or long-term relationships with people that they loved deeply and profoundly, but somehow the sexual relationship wasn't working. Or they were traumatized because of sexual experiences that left them unable to really connect to other human beings in a deeply open, intimate heart connection. Also, I found a lot of people coming to me that had come to a place in their career where they had reached the top of another ladder, had climbed their own ambitions, and realized that actually there is no point to starting another company. There is no point to earning another $1 million. What is the point of life really? And then at this point, starting to have deeper inquiries into what the deeper meaning of life is. In other words, for them, the matrix also cracked. And so for many of these people, they realized that somewhere in their lives they had had a sexual experience that was very profound. And so they started to make the connection between what is possible in our sexuality and our sexual opening and a connection to a deeper mystery, a deeper realization of what the purpose of life really is. And that is how many people found me. And so over the years, many people started to ask me, students that were now very immersed in my work, if I could train them to work in the way that they did, because they found that there wasn't anybody else that was working in this way. And really what I was doing was I was bringing together an understanding of the complexity of the human psyche. That was, one say, coming from an immersion in the connection with the human subconscious, psychological subconscious, and I'll get back to that in a moment. But also the collective subconscious, getting an understanding of how to drop into the wisdom that is held in our psyches as human beings coming together. So that was one dimension of what I was starting to work with. The second dimension was the unique frequencies of subtle energetics that opens in the body when we know how to work with sexual energy correctly. And then the third element that I was working with is the mystery, the connection to our divine essence, to a deep dropping into stillness. The kind of states that we go to in meditation or in deep prayer, but that we are also able to go to in connecting with our sexual energy, whether on our own or with a partner, in a profound way. And so I listened to this calling, this inquiry, this request from people, and I was baffled as to how it was going to be possible for me to teach other people what I was doing, because it felt to me like much of it was coming through a lifetime of experience, of realizing maybe at a young age that life required of us a full yes to everything that life brought us, not only to the ecstasy but also to the agony. And so I realized that in order for someone to do this work, which I at some point started to call totality therapy, they would have to be willing to develop that degree of full, open, yes embrace to the sum total of life's experience. And I also realized that it would require the development of a deep compassion for humanity and its rich complexity, the ability to step into somebody else's reality, which means leaving behind your own paradigm and getting really curious about what you're not hearing, really getting curious about your own assumptions, getting curious about discovering the paradigm through which you view life and a different paradigm that somebody else may be presenting. And so I also realized that in order for somebody to do this work, they would have to have a very deep commitment to developing clarity and presence, which means the willingness to address every corner of the unconscious that is hiding in the, like I'm imagining the back mirror, the rear view mirror of the car. Those aspects of our lives that we habitually ignore or gloss over because it just feels too uncomfortable to go there. For instance, those awkward states like the things that make us feel humiliated, ashamed, embarrassed, small. Like we want to try and find a strategy to avoid this situation or this experience. In order to do this work that I'm now calling totality therapy, it requires as a practitioner the willingness to track yourself. The way that a hunter in an indigenous culture would learn how to track the footprints of an animal. We have to learn to track our own avoidances, the ways in which we still get identified with one state and try and avoid another state. And so it's a very deep commitment to your own inner work. It's a commitment to look at all aspects of your sexuality from the deepest shadow dimensions of what you haven't been wanting to look at, what's been too traumatic, what's been too overwhelming, what's been too embarrassing, your desires, what turns you on, as well as your inability to get aroused, the deadness in the body, the places where we don't feel. So the shadow states, the willingness to go into those, deep into the mud, but also the willingness to go all the way into the finest frequencies of our being and to open to levels of sexual experience that are actually not about being turned on, that are not about staying with what feels really exciting for me, because the frequency where we're going is into, one could say, leaving behind the familiar world of sex to enter into a level of communion with ourselves, with our own bodies, and with all of existence that is very, very refined and very profound, but has nothing to do with gratification, sexual gratification, emotional gratification. So the full spectrum, all the way down into the mud, all the way up into the heights of the connection with the finer dimensions of our being. So what I'd like to do at this point, I think at this, you're starting to get a good sense of why it is that I eventually got to the point where the pieces came together for me, and I saw that yes, indeed, it was possible to create a training program and a personal intensive, right? Because this course, Totality Therapy Training, is an opportunity also for people who just simply want to do their own work in a deep and profound and consistent way over 21 months. It's also an opportunity for people who are sensing somewhere that life is calling them to contribute towards a deeper understanding of sexuality in the world, in whatever discipline of work you may be finding yourself, whether it's therapeutic, body work, birth work, so many different disciplines, teaching, where we get to encounter sexuality as an area where our world really just is out of its depth, isn't able to meet what people's experiences are with enough awareness and consciousness. And so what I've done is I've put together this training program, Totality Therapy Training, which I ran for the first time in 2011. And I was actually astounded that a couple of dozen people signed up for this training, despite the obvious degree of demand that it was going to take from everyone who signed up to do this work. And what was even more astounding to me is that so many of them have continued to say to me in the last 5 years, or 6 years, that this training program was the most profound, most life-changing, most professional training that they'd ever done. And that they kept nagging me to do the course again. And so here we are. The training is starting again on the 13th of May this year. And we've created a beautiful website to introduce it. So I would like to invite you at this stage to go and have a look at the page. Open it on your screen so that you can see what I'm talking about. It helps with the visual presentation. And it's on my website, shaktimalan.com, which is www.shaktimalan.com. And then you can just type in / Totality Therapy Training. And so that is spelled TOTALITYTHERAPY Training. So shaktimalan.com / Totality Therapy Training. And Tiffany has also put the link for you into the chat box, which is at the bottom of your screen. So if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see the chat box. Just click on it, and you can just click on the link that Tiffany has given you there. And so go and have a look. Let's open the page, and I will take you deeper into some of the main themes of the training. So if we look at the heading of the banner of the course, you'll see that we've put the Vesuvian Man there, which is an image, of course, from Leonardo da Vinci. And I put it up there because for me, really, the totality therapy training is about the development of a whole or full human being, regardless of gender, that is both completely able and open to be in our humanity and all the messiness of that, in the emotional, in the physical, and deeply into the body, but also all the way up into our spiritual essence. You can see that we've put the Vesuvian Man over the flower of life, because this work, like that beautiful symbol, is going to be connecting us to the whole or the sum total of life itself. In the microcosm of the discovery of our own inner reality, we get to discover life itself in a very profound way. And we discover that as we do our own inner work, in that way, we actually contribute to profoundly changing the world. And that, of course, brings us back to what I said at the beginning, this quest of mine to find a way to contribute towards the evolution of humanity and creating a human society where we can start to relate each other with real care and compassion and intelligence, the intelligence that comes from clarity. And I have found, to my surprise, that working with sexuality in the way that this work developed actually creates the space for that. Because sexual energy is our life force. It's the energy of life itself. It connects us to all dimensions of our existence. It's not separate from our parenting. It's not separate from our work. It's not separate from the way that we live our lives. And so as I continue to share with you what's on the page here, I think you'll get more of a sense of what I'm speaking about. So if you scroll down, you'll see that we've opened the application process. This course is only by application. We can't just simply have people sign up because you do need to be ready for the training, and therefore you will need to fill in an application form. But I'll get to that a bit later. There's a little video which you can watch later of me introducing the course. And then a description of what totality is, if you go to what is totality. And really this invitation to a way of living that supports participants in cultivating a whole or full embrace of all of what life offers us. The agony and the ecstasy, the non-dual experience of life is what invites us actually eventually also to transcending our limited identification with the story of me. And so if we scroll down, the principles of totality therapy, the first principle is what I would call is your willingness to be both the supermoon, the full, total, magnificent expression of who you are, all the way to the total eclipse of you. In other words, the willingness to be completely emptied out of everything that you thought you are. And that is the kind of process that the totality therapy training will take you through. It's also a process of integrating polarities. Every state that we've identified with, for instance, I'm a good person, I'm not a bad person. Well, if that's your identification, the totality therapy training will take you to places where you meet the hidden bad person in you, the desires that you wanted to keep under wraps, the aspects of your being that are not so pretty. And in the meeting of that, in the experience of them, you actually discover an enormous liberation because the integration of the polarities happens. Our ego structures are formed in polarity. For as long as we stay identified with one side of a polarity and try to avoid the opposite. For instance, I'm a sexual person, I'm not an asexual person. I'm a virgin, I'm not a whore, or I'm a whore, I'm not a virgin. I'm a good guy, I'm not somebody that chases women, or I'm heterosexual, I'm not homosexual. Whatever polarity it is that you've identified with in your life, we're going to have to explore the opposite of that as well in this training. This training is also about embracing all dimensions of your sexuality. really from the shadow side all the way to the most transcendent. And the practices and the process will be inviting you to discover all of that in a deeply grounded way. And so why focus on sexuality? Because in the first place, if you keep scrolling down, you'll see that sexuality is a guide to our unconscious. And what that means is that our body, this beautiful body of ours, has the ability to connect us to everything in our being that hasn't been fully felt all the way from our childhood, in fact, all the way to our birth. Every experience that at the time when we had that experience was too much gets stored in our body as a memory. For instance, the first time maybe as an infant where you felt rejected or abandoned. That memory will stay in your system and it will come back up in your sexual experience, in your sexual fantasies, in your relationship life. And the body is the mechanism that will remind you of that. And one of the ways in which the body reminds us of that is through our sexual response. For instance, you might find yourself getting aroused by or attracted to relationships in which you get continuously abandoned or betrayed. If there is something in your being that from an early age has been sitting with the experience of feeling abandoned or betrayed, and that you haven't even known about, because at that young age you weren't able to even understand that that experience was there, and so you keep manifesting that in your life, and it will also keep being pulled into your sexual experience until you get to the place where you have an opportunity like this to dive into your unconscious and actually follow the tracks all the way back, and then get to embody in some way, even some small symbolic way, like writing an essay about your experience of abandonment. Yes, I can come to see that if I'm honest with myself, I must be somewhere attracted to being abandoned, because I keep on attracting sexual partners who abandon me at some point. I'm just using an example here. But a very deep exploration in this training of all the aspects of our unconscious that reveal themselves through our sexuality. Of course, this also includes all levels of trauma, sexual trauma, the shutdown of the body, emotional trauma, an example of which could be, for instance, emotional incest. I was too involved with my parents. I was over-identified with their wants and needs and their desires, or they told me too much about their lives when I was too little. I grew up too fast. All of those things that are in our childhood memories, but that we as children couldn't deal with because we didn't have the support, sits in the body as a memory of something that needs to be fully felt. And so I will invite you through this training to get to the place in the memory of yourselves where you get the opportunity to feel, in our example, what it feels like to feel abandoned, what it feels like to feel betrayed. I feel this deep contraction in my heart. I feel like I want to shake inside. I feel like something in me just wants to avoid the situation as much as I possibly can. But now that I know I've got the space and I keep being invited to drop deeper into that experience, I find a bit of a deeper breath, and I find a sadness in that place in my heart. And I start to get in touch with a child in me that desperately longs to be met, and that feels incredibly alone and sad and cut off from the world. And if I really learn to listen to her and I ask her, what is it that you need, beloved, this young one that is feeling so desperately alone and so abandoned, then she may say to me, I just need you to hold my hand. Please just hold my hand. And then I can imagine that I reach out my hand to this younger part of me and I hold her hand. And I check in into my body to see what that feels like. And I feel her relaxing. I feel the younger me starting to relax and maybe come to settle inside my lap. And a stillness comes into my being because I've met a part of me that hasn't ever felt safe to really come out, because she didn't think she'd be loved. She didn't think she would be rejected. And so through this process, we learn to really meet all these abandoned and rejected and unwanted aspects of ourselves in our body. Scrolling down, sexual energy is life force. That's why we work with sexual energy as well. Our vitality, the vitality that makes it possible for you right now to feel your heartbeat, to listen to me, to understand at all what it is that I'm saying. That energy is sexual energy. It's the heartbeat of life itself that is pulsing through you. In the tantric understanding, sexual energy actually runs all the way from the earth, the planet through which we were born, from the center of the earth, through the soles of your feet, and runs up through the entire center of your body, your torso, and up through the center of your head, and exits out your body through the crown of your head and travels all the way up into the center of the universe. So your sexual energy is this current of life that runs through your body from the earth, connecting you with the electromagnetic field of the earth, and all the way up, like a tree that saps its life energy from the earth, and connect you all the way up to the most divine, to the invisible realms, to the angelic realms, to your own God essence. That is our sexual energy. Our sexual energy, if we scroll down, also takes us to a place of profound presence. The meditation of sex is the ability to drop into deep stillness and profound openness, so that this potent river of life itself can be trapped in us as it starts to open up the subtler dimensions of our being. And I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. It's also, if you scroll down, totality therapy is a meeting point of mysticism and therapy. It's the place where our sexuality meets the opening to what we can't perceive with our normal senses. And also the place where we actually are invited to meet the places in our psychology, in our unconscious, in our childhood, in our experience of now as human beings, that require attention, love, and care. If we don't give ourselves that emotional support, I do believe that this is what's happening for many spiritual seekers who get frustrated with traditional therapy. What then happens is that we reach out for a form of spiritual practice, and we don't take care of our emotional wounding. And as a consequence, we go into spiritual bypassing, which means that we start to use spiritual principles to override the deep, deep longing, the cry that is coming from inside our human being, asking for us to just simply love ourselves in this flesh and blood human being, in this emotional being, in this being that has existed for so many years, and over those years have had experiences that need to be met with all the presence and the awareness that can come to us through developing the capacity to stay present. So scrolling down, we can see that this training is a professional training for practitioners. It is intended to be of use for people who already have a practice in which they would like to bring more consciousness and awareness around how to work with sexual energy in their own practice and also in working with others. It's also very available for people who are just starting to look at a career in this direction. You could do this training and actually start up a practice. And thirdly, you're welcome to do this training purely for your own personal development reasons. Some people did that in the last round of the training, and they certainly found it to be profoundly valuable for their own personal development. The unique quality of this training is that whereas most professional trainings are very intellectual, this program is, yes, going to be satisfying you intellectually very deeply, but it is in the first place an experiential training in which you are required to go through every experience, every dimension of sexual experience that a client might possibly bring to you. And therefore, it is very exposing. It's very revealing. And maybe at this point, I want to say that the way that the training developed, why it has become possible for me to do what I thought would be impossible, which is to train people what I was doing, is because of these elements that are in the Totality Therapy Training Program. First of all, it invites you to a full immersion in experience. You will be going to places where you feel embarrassed, where you feel shy, where you'd rather hide, where you'd rather have nobody know what's going on. It will also take you to places where you're going to feel so excited and so alive that you don't quite know what to do with yourself. And I will be there with a team of senior students to support you through it. You will survive it, and you will become increasingly more and more alive from module to module. Secondly, the method of work will ask of you to continuously reflect on your own inner experience, the experience inside your body, the experience inside your emotional body, the experience of what's happening in your thoughts. You will learn how to start to question your basic thought patterns, your belief systems, and how to develop a degree of freedom in relation to them. How to stay with your body's experience. How to go deeper into your emotional experience. And you will learn how to articulate what you discover in that way, because you will be required to write a lot of essays about your discoveries. The third element is that totality therapy requires of us a lot of vulnerable sharing. It is very revealing, people. And for me, there can be no opening to the full Vesuvian man, to the full embodiment of our humanity, if we are not willing to be vulnerable. In other words, to be real, to be raw, and to be present with everything that comes up for us. The good thing about that is when we become vulnerable, we're much more open to receive, and the support is there. And the fourth element of the method of training is that you are going to be learning what it means to stand in someone else's shoes and to see reality from someone else's perspective. Every other person that is going to be on the training with you will be coming with a vastly different experience to yours. Yeah, you are going to be amazed at the range and complexity of what human beings experience on a sexual level. And so I invite you to start to consider what that would be like for you to work in that way with a group of people. All right, and I'm just checking in to see. It looks like we're all still on track. I'm getting quite inspired and carried away by my sharing here. So people, back to the web page that I've been speaking about, which is shaktimalan.com/totality therapy training, spelled TOTALITY therapy training. Next theme is we come to the course modules, and there are 4 modules on this program. The first module is called the Soulmate Within, and the principle of this module is that we have to become aware of the fact that inside us, each one of us, we are both masculine and feminine, regardless of the body that you were born into. And the primary relationship that you will ever have is that one with yourself, the conversation between your inner masculine and feminine, as mirrored by the men and the women in your life. And so this theme is going to be inviting you to see and to pull back every projection on every significant other in your life, whether it is your mother, your father, your siblings, your ex-lovers, your current lovers, your idealized potential future lovers. You're going to learn to do the work, and you're going to get immersed in some techniques that you will find very, very useful as we progress into the second module. And for this moment, I'm just introducing the modules, and then I'll talk about how they work. The second module is sexual shadow work. Sexual shadow work is looking at all the dimensions of our sexuality that are held in the unconscious, and that what plays out in our sexuality is often as a result of the states, the beliefs, the experiences that live in our unconscious. In other words, everything that we're not fully aware of, and that acts out in our life in an unconscious way. And so this is the work that is really, really challenging and also incredibly exciting, because we get to dive in underneath the tip of the iceberg. So 5% of our reality as human beings is our conscious reality. The other 95% of our reality is living in the unconscious. In order to go to that place, to the unconscious, we have to be willing to face things that we haven't been willing to face before in our lives. And some of the questions that come up in sessions with people is, what about sexual fantasy? Well, actually, your sexual fantasy is a guide to what is held in your unconscious. For instance, if you have an obsession with large breasts, it could be that that is very connected to your relationship with mothering. And we can explore that a bit more in Q&A if you want to ask me more about that. What are affairs about? Why does it happen that we can be deeply in love with one person and then find ourselves absolutely magnetically drawn into a sexual relationship with somebody else? That is because of something that's happening in the unconscious. Your conscious mind obviously doesn't have control over it. What if I don't feel any sexual desire? It's because there's something going on in your unconscious that is registering in your body as a shutdown. It's actually connected with what's happening in your nervous system. But for the nervous system to be able to unwind, we will have to go back into what happened in earlier times in your life. It could be last year. It could be 10 years ago. And the method of work that I use will take you to these places that have resulted in a shutdown in your sexual desire. How do I get free from sexual trauma? Those themes are complex, and they will be explored in great depth over many different themes over 11 months, people, of sexual shadow work. That is how much time it's going to take. And yes, you will be supported through that and everything that comes up in the process by both me and the team of senior students that will be available. So scrolling down, the third module is what I call real sex, the theory and the practice of conscious sexuality. This is where we get back to what I've said to you at the beginning of the course, that totality therapy at some point will take you to a place of giving up your idea of sex, because we do grow up with an understanding of sexuality which is kind of about a certain level of gratification and of an animal desire that is beautiful and delicious and ecstatic. But if that gratification starts to become a habit over many decades of using sex to relieve ourselves of stress, or using sex to support a codependent relationship, or using sex to basically just keep ourselves sort of minimally happy, we miss the opportunity to discover that sexual energy is not meant to just stay in the sexual organs. If we can relax and open up and develop the meditative quality in the way that we relate to our sexual energy, then we discover that that energy can actually start to travel up through the subtle core, the subtle center of our body, which the yogis called the Sushumna, in English is called the core light, and actually travels all the way up through the crown of the head and opens us up into our divine essence. And then through the subtle center here at the top of the head, which is called the crown chakra, we can then again receive sexual energy down the center of our body, all the way through every dimension of what is called the chakras, the subtle wheels or spokes that open us up to the perception of ourselves on other levels. And I'm actually feeling that just for a couple of minutes at this point, what I'd like to do is to invite you to just close your eyes so I can just briefly take you into an experience of what I'm talking about here. So just closing your eyes and taking a couple of deep breaths. I invite you to turn your eyes inward and imagine that you're looking into a point in the very center of your head. Find a pinprick of light in the center of your head. And breathing deeply into that point, imagine that you are dropping a plumb line of light all the way down along your spine and into your sex center. And now I invite you, if you can, to put the palms of your hands over your sex center. So not touching, but putting the palms over your sex center and imagining that from the palms of your hands there are radiant suns that are radiating pure light right into your sex center. Become aware of your sex center and start to visualize your sexual organs lit up with the finest frequency of golden light or energy. And now, from this point of light in your sex center, find that core light that runs from your sex center through the center of your body, along the spine, all the way into the center of your head. Looking into the center of your head and being aware of your sexual organs, I invite you to relax deeply and open up to a different level of perception of your sexual organs. It might be that you start to perceive energy inside your body in this moment. It might be that you start to hear frequencies of energy running between your sex center and the center of your head. Some call it the soundless sound or the great orchestra of life. It might be that you start to sensate, to sense viscerally experiences inside your body, maybe in your sex center or your heart or the center of your head, very subtle, that you may not have experienced before. And perhaps even there's a different taste in your mouth, a different smell that comes to you in this moment. Keep dropping deeper in and simply be curious. And then relaxing your hands and settling back into the force of gravity. Some deep breaths, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes again. All right, so that should have given you a bit of a sense of the profound mystical dimensions of the inner exploration of sexual energy that we will be exploring on this course, on this training. And then in the fourth module, we will be looking at how to take this deeper understanding of sexual energy into relationship, into our sexual relating with others, and into the exploration of intimacy in that relationship between me and another human being, as we discover the mystical dimensions of union, of inner union that is possible when we start to explore the tantric practices that have been developed over the millennia, really, by tantric practitioners. Tantric practitioners being those mystics that discovered that we can use our sexual energy to connect us to our divine essence. All right, people, so now scroll right all the way back down, and then you'll see at the bottom of this page, you'll see an invitation to apply. The process to apply for this training is by first of all, completing the application form, which you can simply click on there, and then paying for a session with me. I do need to have an interview with everybody who applies for the course so that I can make sure that you're ready, and also so that you can make sure that you want to work with me. Because I know that there are many people who want to sign up for the course who may not ever have worked with me before. And then only after that, after the interview, I will tell you whether I think that you're ready for the training. So you get to have an opportunity to really make a very grounded decision. The training is 21 months. The cost is significant. It's $2,620 if you pay once, $4,620 if you pay once off. But there are also options of paying, for instance, $240 a month over 21 months. And the group of people you can imagine that are going to come together for this training are going to be quite powerful. So I think what I'd like to do at this point is I'd like to start inviting you to consider questions. You can start typing them in. But I'm first going to invite any of my senior students, those people who have done the totality therapy training before, who are willing to share about their experience of just this training, to simply just type into the chat box and say that you're willing to share. And then we're going to bring up some of them live so that they have an opportunity to share with you, and you get to. Great. Kalyani is ready. And so, Kalyani, if you would make yourself live by clicking on your video and your audio. Awesome. So everybody meet Kalyani. Kalyani actually completed my full apprenticeship. That is the most advanced level of the totality therapy training. That also involves quite a bit of one-on-one work with me, coaching work, so that you get guided to really have support once you start to work with clients in this work. And also, you need to have at least attended one 10-day training with me. So welcome, Kalyani, and thank you so much for being willing to share with us. I'm actually going to make you, I'm going to put the spotlight on you. So go ahead and share.
Thank you, Shakti. Wow, it feels so good. My heart is absolutely rejoicing that you are offering this training again, because there is so much. It is so rich. It is oozing with your knowledge, but your love, your experience. And for me, it has changed my life, my own personal life, but I also I was so ready for it, but what I wasn't ready for was how it would take me to a new career, basically. And I started to see how there was a lot of other things on offer that were more about dabbling. And then the totality therapy arrived, and I so resonated with it. And as I did the course, which was intense, which was going layer after layer through beliefs, through illusions, and feeling myself grow inside and in my interaction with the world and with people I loved, it became clear to me that the way forward was to embrace this way of being and offer that through my clients. And what was interesting is when I started the course, as you know, I was doing a lot of massage work, a lot of tantric massage, still from a place of deep integrity, which is my way, but I was very much in that exploration of sexuality through the body. And what totality therapy did is took me through the layer underneath where people would come with issues, but the body was not the only way in. It was part of it. And I think that's why I love totality therapy so much, that the body is included. And so what happened over time is the client came to see me. I would unearth things from with them, and like their child would need to be heard. But I saw how the session, the body massage session, was not the place for it anymore. Totality therapy called me out and said, you have to start practicing in this way. So doing the apprenticeship with you was very profound as well. And you've always been so supportive. And now I'm really loving to use all the tools. I think there's so many tools in the totality therapy that you share. That's why I loved it so much. And for me, no one client is the same. And I say to people I work with that they are guiding the way in because their subconscious is the solution to their issues. And it's the only way that goes beneath layers. So if I can give an example, I often have people who come to work with me who have done years, and I am, years literally of psychotherapy or mind-based therapies. And, they have a place, they have a role to play. And often people see me and they say, I understand my trauma. I am done with it. I have looked at it through so many angles. And yet, especially in intimate situations, my body, I don't know what's happening. My body is not following. And I freeze, or I don't understand what's happening. I love this man, but I can't make love to him. And so we go to the places where the mind is a host, but is not ruling anymore. And that's, for me, that was a key in the totality therapy approach, that it embraced the body, the subconscious, and it really, really listened to all the aspects that make us whole without ignoring any. And for that, it's just perfect.
Thank you, Kalyani. And I must say that, as the proud teacher on the other side, I have been so in awe of your ability to handle the complexity of what people bring into your sessions. And as you say, each client is really unique.
Mm-hmm.
And I have heard people do quite substantial trainings working with sexuality, but then they walk out of that going into a session and they've got kind of a handful of methods that they are using, and so the client has to basically fit into the method. But that's not how human reality is. We need to be able to meet people just exactly where they're at. And so it's been really wonderful for me to see that you have been able to do that. And so it gives me the confidence that it is possible. So thank you for your sharing, and also for the example that you're setting.
Yeah. I'm so pleased that you're offering it again. And yeah, there's so much in it. I really encourage anybody who is considering it to go for the interview and really discuss that with you. because
Yeah.
it is invaluable. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kalyani. Okay, great. Let's have, so Kim Maya is ready to share. And then, Kim Maya, can you bring yourself onto video and audio?
Yes, can you hear me? Oh,
We
yes.
can hear you a little soft. You're definitely in the dark there, girl.
Oh, I am,
There's
aren't
light.
I?
Okay.
It's a
No,
great,
now we can see you.
a great afternoon in London. Hello, Shakti. Hello, everyone.
Hello, Kim Maya.
Oh, yes, I'm so excited to be returning to this material and this training again. It's been, my God, I'm not quite sure how I can how I can get across how amazing it's been. God, my video is not very good, is it?
It's
Anyway.
okay. We can feel you.
Yes, good. I'm glad about that. So, yeah, I mean, it's opened up immeasurable wisdom for me personally and also in my work. I came to it professionally wise. I did a psychotherapy training and that was fantastic. But there were still unanswered questions and I was really, really interested in sexuality, and I did a whole bunch of trainings, and none of them were quite it. And so there was sexuality, there was also the therapy piece, and in my own life, I've had 12 years of psychotherapy. Bless the man that sat with me for 12 years. But as you touched upon, Shakti, he didn't quite have the tools, like he kept coming back to my past all the time, which ultimately I just felt very stuck around. So, so there was that aspect that still I had many unanswered questions in therapeutically. And then there was also the spiritual piece for me that was so important, and that I was discovering for myself. So I think in your training, Shakti, you somehow make these sub and unconscious dynamics accessible in a human way. So it's like places that I hadn't been able to find before. Somehow, in your training, I did, in some of the tools that you have. It's like people say we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And somehow you enabled that in your training. Like what I see as a human being is learning through relating. And in the course, there's lots of relating with these dynamics that seem quite hidden in us. And I mean, Kalyani, I remember we had a weekend together where we were working with some of the caricatures. And I mean, it was just hilarious. And I can see now there was princess in me. And at the time, my God, I took her really seriously. You know, she was, oh, stay away from me, everyone. And now, several years on, she's still there, but I recognize her and I love her, but she's really, I don't take her seriously. So, and also, I just want to touch on trauma. I had a very, very traumatic young life and had found it very difficult to process it, actually. Things that people find fun, I didn't find fun. I would find them traumatic. And in the past, I wouldn't be able to move past that. So what I want to say is what this training will do is it gives you the possibility to move beyond the familiar points, whether that's in relationship or points that get triggered, like for me with trauma. I would get triggered and then I would just stay at that point and retreat. but I knew there was more. I knew that it was possible to go beyond. And I found that with you, Shakti, with this training. So, I really want to encourage anyone listening who's thinking of joining to really fill out that application and say yes.
Thank you so much, Kimaya. Beautiful, beautiful sharing. And of course, many beautiful memories are coming up for me. Very beautiful memories. Kimaya has also attended some of the in-person retreats that I've presented as Kalyani. I see there's a question about that, so I just want to mention that I will have 3 in-person retreats. The first one is in the US. And Kimaya, stay on for me to ask you about that.
Okay.
The first one is in the US now from the 18th to the 28th of April in California. The second one is going to be in Spain in June 2018. And then the third one will be in South Africa towards the end of next year or the beginning of 2019. We haven't quite decided on the date yet. But Kimaya, maybe if you just want to, do you remember the retreat that you came on? Was it worth it for you to fly all the way from England to the States to go and do that?
It was really fantastic. And one of the things I really got was the cultural differences between, British people and the Americans.
All right, yeah.
Which was so rich for me. I found it really, really rich. It was wonderful. It was really, to be able to do this work immersed in a group, you just learn so much. Every little thing that comes up, it's like information. So there's such profound opportunities to really see yourself very, very clearly, perhaps in ways that you wouldn't, there wouldn't be a possibility to meet yourself in these ways. So the retreats are, really, really wonderful opportunity, and to see everything together, like all the tools together, and how it all comes up in the body, in the breath, and what to look for, all these things. It's very it's very important to be able to gather together in a live space and experience it for yourself, to see how you experience it, and how you might, if you want to work with it as a practitioner.
Which you've done. You really have incorporated that into your work. Yeah.
Very much so.
And
very
it's
much
changed
so.
your work as well.
Yeah, it has, absolutely. I mean, when I first started doing the psychotherapy, I would sit in a chair and they would sit in a chair, and
right.
there we were in our chairs. And I mean, that's great, and it works, and for many people that's what they need. But this work, you're not in a chair. So anyone who is working in that way, it really shows you how to engage with the body and engage with the energy. And for me, working with more, shall we say, shadow states like anger and the sexual shadow and the deep questions. My life has really asked me to ask very, very deep questions, and I continue to do so. And like Kalyani touched on, I work quite a lot with senior clinicians, like people who've been psychotherapists themselves for a very long time. And in fact, they can be the hardest to work with because they think they know already, and they're sort of very much in that mental place. But with this work, it just opens up so much more, coming into the body and more of the energy system, the subtle bodies and stuff. So, it's been really, really wonderful. Doesn't quite cover it, but I think you can all feel me, hopefully.
Okay, great, Kimaya. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So in a moment, I'll get Kimaya. You can put your video off as well. In a moment, I'll ask Lisa to share as well, but I just want to answer some of the questions that are coming up. So I've given the dates of the in-person retreat. I've told you where it will be held in 3 different continents. You will have an opportunity. I think that will give you enough of a chance to participate. Then, of course, there will be a replay of this call. So just to say a little bit more about the structure, people, because there might also be some of you that are on the call that don't feel like you can commit to a 21 months process, but you'd like to participate in these themes. Each one of those 4 modules that I described, each one of the themes, will start with a 7-week module that will be open to the public. For instance, the first one, The Soulmate Within, is a 7-week online course that is open to anybody, not only people who are participating in the Totality Therapy full training. And for those 7 weeks, we will all be joining in to explore together. And then the Totality Therapy group will, after that, have another couple of modules where we will get together in webinar format. I'll take you deeper into that particular theme, into the teaching content, but also into how to facilitate that work. And in your own private website, you will then be exploring with each other the deeper questions I'll be posing to you, writing an essay, sharing in a more substantial way than what you people who only do the 7-week course will be asked to do. And then we'll move on to the next module, the sexual shadow work module, which also starts with a 7-week course that is open to anybody that wants to do an introductory course in how to work with their sexual shadow. But then after that, everybody else leaves and you continue in the Totality Therapy Circle with another, what is it, like 9.5 months odd of deep immersion in every possible shadow state connected to our sexuality that I found in the work so far. And we'll be meeting on average every 3 weeks for a webinar. You'll get quite a bit of written material from me as well, and you'll be required to do a number of essays for each module. And so it will take time of you for sure, but it's going to take a lot of psychic space in the sense that you are going to be taken through a process for 21 months of deep inner inquiry, of looking at yourself in ways that you haven't before, and also sharing about your own inner life in ways that you may never have done before with anybody else. So, Diana asking, do you have to be a participant in the Totality Therapy training in order to attend one of the 10-day in-person retreats? No, you don't. You can just do a 10-day retreat as well. Jessie asking, does it matter if you attend a retreat before beginning, or is it better to attend the retreat later during the program? There is, in fact, a retreat that starts before the training program starts. I did it in this way because it gives people an opportunity. The California retreat is an opportunity for people to participate in a live event with me, and then after that sign up for the 21 months process. You can also just do that retreat. So no, it doesn't matter if you attend the retreat before the official training starts. It will give you a very good grounding and a kickstart into the program. The support from senior students. So there's a whole beautiful team of people who've done this work before. I think we've got about four people. 4 or 5, I forget now. And we've also got a lead facilitator, Rianne, who is going to be available to do sessions with you. So each person who signs up for the training is eligible for 1 session with me, one hour session a year with me, and 3 shorter sessions with Rianne, in which you can actually have a little, like a real little therapy session if you need that. But all of the senior students, the whole team of us, me and also the senior students, are all going to be engaged in the process. They're going to be reading your assignments. They're going to be responding. They're going to be available for you to, if you drop a helpline to them in an email and say, I'm thinking this is too much. How am I going to survive this? They will be there to respond. They'll be responding to what you are writing on the webpage, and they'll be responding to your individual emails if you have questions that you feel are not getting addressed in the group process. It may happen, of course, that you do this training and that you find that something is coming up that is, say, for instance, the deep trauma that requires one-on-one counseling. In that case, of course, we will recommend for you to do counseling. I will have recommendations for people that can support you in that. There come times in our lives where we need that level of one-on-one support. This is, of course, a group training process, and there is a tremendous amount of support in the group process. I can't recall at this point anybody in the previous training program that didn't feel that they had enough support through what was available for them. Through the, at that point, actually only my support, but then also the support that is there through everybody's listening to each other's processes and engaging with that process. So the senior student support will take the form of reading your assignments, responding to them, and also being available for short sessions with you. Elion asking, can you explain the similarities and differences between totality therapy training and the Dakar-Dakini training? So, Dakar-Dakini training, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to there. It might be referring to what is called the ISTA training, what is known as the ISTA training. I can't comment on the ISTA training, even though I've done the training myself. I've facilitated it once myself. Basically, what I can just say to you is that this training, the totality therapy training, is 21 months. It is going to be taking you to a much, much deeper dive immersion in all different dimensions of your sexuality. I don't believe actually in training people. You know, when I started doing the work, I called myself a Dakini, and I trained people in doing, well, I thought that I would be training people in doing Dakini work. Over the years, I discovered that actually it's not appropriate for us to use our own person, including our own sexuality, our own emotional body, to create an intervention so that somebody else can have a therapeutic or a spiritual experience. So the way that I do my training now is that you actually get trained not to be a Daka or a Dakini, but to be a facilitator, to be able to hold space for your client or the group of people that you're working with, to step into their own lives in a more holistic way, to bring to you whatever's going on in their sexual lives, and you can hold space for them to explore that in a deeper way, in a very embodied way, doing practices that are very embodied but don't need to involve your body, in a emotionally connected way, through a very large range of psychological methods that I teach you as well. You learn to guide a participant feeling where they're at in their emotional process. You will know where to take them, what kind of method to take them into. And the range of methods, I can say, are very substantial. They are enormous and not like any other kind of training modality that I've seen also in the range of the Daka and Dakini training program. And so you get trained to be a facilitator for your clients so that they can be fully embodied and empowered to be able to go through their own process without needing you, right? So they can actually go home and use the method that you've given them and have a deep integration of whatever the topic is that you were exploring, or the trauma or whatever, but they don't need you in the long run to be the source of their transformation. So Nisha is asking, what does being ready for the totality therapy training look like in terms of your trauma history, your awareness, your previous therapeutic or spiritual experience? Nisha, you know, in a way, it looks like a deep gut feeling in you that you want to do it and that you're ready to dive in. Your own inner sensing is going to be the clearest indication of your readiness. So if you find yourself listening to what I have to share here and feeling excited about the possibility of doing this work, I would suggest to you that you fill in the application form and actually have the interview with me. We can look, if you've had a trauma history, most of us have had, me too. I will be able to, in the interview, assess with you whether you're ready to do this work and whether you're ready to undertake the journey with me. The work is gradual and systematic enough that it's very unlikely to catapult you into what oftentimes is called a re-traumatizing experience. In fact, the opposite is likely to occur. I'm going to be teaching you systematically how to stay inside your body with what comes up as experience. And then how to start to meet more and more of the places inside of you that you haven't been able to meet before. You don't need any previous therapeutic experience. You also don't need any spiritual experience. You do need the willingness, though, and the desire to go all the way into your unconscious and all the way into your superconscious. And the willingness, you can be a complete novice. In fact, sometimes that's the best. But the willingness to say yes and to commit yourself to what this work is going to involve. All right, so yes, the Vitruvian Man. So, sorry, I can make these dyslectic mistakes. So Leonardo da Vinci's guy is called the Vitruvian Man. I'm going to now give Lisa an opportunity to share. So Lisa, if you're still around and you're willing to share about your experience of doing this training and how it's affected your work, then please come on and put your video on and also your audio. All right, so I'm unmuting Lisa. Awesome.
Oh, hi. Okay.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, I don't even know where to begin with what to share because it keeps evolving as you're speaking. This program was so immense and profound for me, and I love the distinction that you just made in talking about the Dakini Daka training about being a facilitator and not being an intervention. So for me, part of what that brings up is that what is so amazing about this totality therapy process is developing my own witness, developing the space to notice when there's the ego flare-ups in myself. Like you said, with humans, it's the variables are infinite about what could come up working in such spaces. And so the way to hold foundation and space to offer someone in pure presence reflection is all these roads come back to the same essence of self, of the connection between the earth and the divine, and the tracking of myself and noticing when the ego flare-ups come in, and having the tools to not only step aside and handle those spaces in myself, but to be able to offer those tools to a client, to get in the empowerment of being able to offer themselves that own level of understanding that's available in connection with their own sexual essence, to the divine, to the earth. And with myself, of being able to fearlessly sit in front of somebody and assure them that I can receive whatever is coming up for them when I invite their subconscious in, and that have the confidence in myself that because I have all of these roads of it coming back to my heart alignment and witness space and divine nature, that I will be able to receive all of them without judgment and with loving space to invite all the shadow in. So that's what this work has really given me.
Mm-hmm. And Lisa, I also know that, you know, from the way that you've learned to work, that you're not only just inviting the shadow in, there's that amazing ability to not go into a contraction because of what the client brings,
yes.
but also then what they bring is very specific. And so to be able to meet them with that experience and explore it, yeah, which
yes.
requires quite a range of skills, because different people are going to require very different ways of working with them.
Yes, absolutely. And just having respect for the subtle layers that get to be opened up in each process with each person, and having the tools to do that, to aligning the polarities and retracting the projections. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Anything else you want to share? You're excited that we're doing this again, no?
I am so excited, and it's just so beautiful to see the way that you have expanded and developed this work. I do remember in 2011, it was quite overwhelming as you were finding the shape of this container to offer this practice, and to see the amount of care that you've put into structuring this offering is really beautiful and amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Beautiful. I look forward to having you on the course with us.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Great. All right, so Lisa, you can take yourself off video and audio. I'll put myself on the main. So, some more questions around. How much does this therapy ascribe or draw from psychoanalysis, Freud versus other counseling theories? Rosemary, you know, the interesting thing, somebody's sound is on. Can you just always check that you're not on audio? Great. You know, it definitely doesn't work with psychoanalysis as such. No, it doesn't. It works with a very eclectic, you know, bunch of psychotherapeutic methods and approaches that, in a way, you could say have revealed themselves as such only after I've started to use them. So, I mean, to give you an idea of the range, yes, I definitely work with elements like elements of what Jungian analysts would work with, the dream reality. I work with elements of what shamanic psychology would work with, where we're tracking with second attention what's going on inside the body. I work with somatic psychological methods that are very focused on noticing what the body's response is to whatever is coming up. Certainly, there's an element of the influence of psychoanalysis in the sense that we are working with the unconscious, but I certainly don't ascribe to Freud's ideas about sexuality. I think that they were quite experimental and fairly far-fetched. But then I'm also influenced by, for instance, systemic psychology, which really sees us as human beings as being part of a bigger system, and that our own well-being is interconnected with what's happening to the tribes that we form part of, whether it be our social tribes or our families of origin or our ancestry. And so we go back right into those dimensions of our psychology that are not even just current time, but the influence of those that have come before us. I could start to unpack all different elements here of what psychological approaches I'm using. I must tell you that I'm not in the first place a psychologist. This work is very unique in that it's bringing together understandings of psychology. Yes, for instance, we're working with accessing and resourcing elements of our childhood that need to be felt and met. We're working with understanding the way that attachment works and the way that we can get trapped in a victim triangle where we move between being the rescuer, the victim, and the predator. It also works with social anthropology, with understandings of social anthropology, because that's what I have my PhD in. So learning to listen to silences, to what is not being said, to the way that space is used, to the hidden meanings behind the metaphors that people used, the repetition of words, the gestures, the body postures, the response in the group to somebody sharing, and learning to work with all of those messages that come up inside not only the individual's life, but within the group, what comes up inside of me in response to what you present to me. And so if it is a purely psychological training that you're looking for, of course, this is not the best offering that you can find. But if you're looking for something that is integrating a deep understanding of sexuality with also an appreciation of our psychological nature and also the mystical dimensions of sexuality, then I think that this program is offering something very unique. Any anthroposophical ideas included in your work? Yes, there is an element of anthroposophical understanding. I do love Rudolf Steiner's work, and it has influenced my thinking as well. But the concept of polarity is also, the ego structure existing in polarity also is drawing on Advaita Vedanta, which is an ancient Hindu philosophy that really wants to draw our attention to the fact that ultimately we are neither masculine or feminine, or young or old, or good or bad, or any of that, but that it is possible to come to a state where those polarized perceptions of ourselves integrate, and we discover that actually this being that I am is constantly in deep communion with what I could perceive as the external world, but that is actually an expression of me, because ultimately I am consciousness, and consciousness is moving through all of life. And I get to experience my sexual energy as well as a very cosmic experience, because it starts to connect me to the pulse and the rhythm of life, of the stars, of this planet, of the trees, of all of life around me. Okay. Wonderful, people. So it seems to me that the questions have come to maybe a rounding up. Just want to invite you again to go and have a look and consider filling in that application form. It's on my website, shaktimalan.com/totality, as in TOTALITY, therapy training, totality therapy training. So, yeah, it's been really beautiful to spend time with all of you. Seems to me that there's some more questions. Okay, so just questions coming in. I'm willing to answer them. I don't know if this is how you're taking questions for Shakti online now, but what about the gender mix of the group? Are there men besides myself of the 50 listening now? Okay, great. So definitely, yes, this course is absolutely open to men and women and people of whatever mix of gender you identify yourself to be. It's a very powerful course for men to do as well. It seems to be that a lot of people who end up signing up for this course ends up being of the female species. But I would love to have more men on the course. I happen to know that there are a number of men who are keen to sign up and are getting ready to fill in their application forms. And so I'm hoping that we'll have a good gender mix. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter because each one of you is going to be showing up as a human being and going through your own unique process. It's not going to be like you're going to be having to carry the masculine for all the women on the course, because they're going to be going through enough of their own process. So also there's a question about where people are coming from. We are going to be intending to bring people together in in-person groups. And yes, of course, it would be wonderful if there are people in Vancouver, Canada, as well as people in Cape Town, as well as people in the Garden Route, as well as people in London. And hopefully life designs it that way, that we can have in-person gatherings of or even some traveling. Yeah, I know that Kalyani traveled down to go meet Kimaya, so that you can also meet with each other in person. But you can do the entire training online without meeting anybody in person. Right, so a question about the time commitment for the course. There's a 7 weeks, so 7 weeks at the beginning of each of the modules is a fairly intensive process where there is once a week a teaching session, many of them live with me. Oftentimes also the opportunity for a coaching session in the week. There is homework for you to do. There's a video for you to watch of a practice, which is usually just about 10 minutes or so. So that practice you'll be doing at least once, but hopefully more times in a week. And then you'll also be sharing on the website. So I would say during the 7-week courses, your time commitment is probably around 3 or 4 hours a week. Could go up to 7 or 8, depending on how active you are, also in participating on the Facebook groups. During the rest of the modules, so say if we go to module 2 after the 7-week course for the rest of the 11 months, I would say that the time commitment would be, really mostly the time commitment is your investment in exploring themes in your own inner life. But I would say it would take between, maybe say between 4 and 7 hours a week, if I were to guess in terms of the amount of time that goes into writing, reflecting, reading other people's assignments. As I said, it could take less, it could take more. Do you have a day of the week that we connect online? You will find the details of that in the scheduling as soon as you sign up. But yes, predominantly Tuesdays 9 a.m. Pacific time, which is about, at this point, 6 p.m. in South Africa, which is about the same time in Europe and a couple of hours earlier in England. All right, everybody. So you're welcome to keep sending me questions. Please feel free to email questions to Tiffany. She can send it on to me. I would love to hear how this was for you. I would love to see you on the training. I would love to see you on the 7-week courses otherwise. And I want to just invite you, let's all take a minute to just close our eyes and drop in together. And just take some deep breaths. Feeling yourself inside your body. Notice what is happening inside your body right now. Which parts of your body are you aware of? What's happening with your breathing? And what are you tracking inside of yourself? What has revealed itself to you in this time that we've been together? What inner questions? What discoveries about you? What discoveries about sexuality have opened themselves for you in this time? And can you just take a few deep breaths into your heart and appreciate yourself deeply for showing up, for taking the time, for caring enough about this world that we live in, and that you're willing to ask questions about sexuality, that you're willing to extend yourself beyond your comfort zone, and that you're willing to wake up to this beautiful, precious life that we have, to live it fully, to engage with it more wholly, and to also embrace your sexuality more fully. Just a deep gratitude from me to each one of you as well for that willingness, for showing up, and for the powerful field of awareness and presence that you helped to create in this meeting. And then just some deep breaths, feeling the earth underneath you, feeling the force of gravity, feeling yourself inside your body, at home, simply just here, while at the same time connected to a whole field across the world of people tuning in to this conversation. Slowly letting go of that conversation, and then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. All right, everybody, thank you so much for this beautiful time spent together. I feel very excited about continuing this journey with you all, and please do feel free to send me any further questions that you may have. Lots of love and blessings on the rest of your day, your evening.